Earlier in the spring, we took a look at making this little gardening tool that is a very handy digger, weeder, cultivator, pretty much an all-in-one tool for use in our raised bed garden or in our greenhouse. I'm John Switzer. Welcome back to Black Bear Forge. Now, while I have not really wanted any other kind of gardening tool, and Janet has been very happy using this as almost the only tool we use for our gardening this year, a lot of people have asked about other types of tools. So today I thought I would take a look at making a simple gardening trowel as a companion tool for this, and we're going to use very similar materials, techniques, perhaps maybe a different style of handle, just to explore something different in that regard. Now, this tool was made out of some of this really big bandsaw blade, and this comes from a sawmill in the Pacific Northwest, something I stopped while we were on vacation 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, and asked if they had any old saw blades that they were getting rid of. I had no idea how big they were. These things are absolutely massive. The guy said, go down to the saw shop and ask them down there, and these saw blades were running all the way around the building. The crew worked in the middle of the blade while they were sharpening it because there wasn't room between the blade and the walls of the shed that they were working in. So it's just a big, massive blade. But they said, oh yeah, when we wear them out, we break them up into pieces, and we throw them in that dumpster over there. Well, I got a stack of these about this big out of that dumpster, filled up the back of the car with as much as I could haul and still have room for our luggage. And I've been using these off and on now for the last 20 plus years, and I'll probably never run out. So if you get a chance to stop at a big sawmill like that, it might be worth inquiring. So I need to cut a piece out that I can make our garden trowel out of. And to do that, I'll probably use a combination of a shear and a bandsaw, maybe a little bit with an angle grinder. But this is still hardened steel, and to be able to cut it, I'm going to need to soften it. So I'm going to run this through a heat cycle in the gas forge, let it cool down slowly, then I should be able to cut this without too much difficulty. But before we get started with that, I would like to thank today's video sponsor, who once again is Bear Knives. Bear Knives is a company from the Netherlands who is offsetting the CO2 emissions of their production process so that every knife made is a net negative CO2 emissions. Bear knives are made from German stainless steel with a unique mountain pattern forged into the blade. They're available either with or without a woodblock magnetic knife holder. I've had this knife for about a week now, and I've used it quite extensively in the kitchen, and I'm really very pleased with the performance. Bear Knives still has a few days left on their Kickstarter campaign, and that is the way they are funding this project. So if you're interested in supporting Bear Knives or just want to learn more about who they are and what they offer, there's a link in the video description. I'm just going to let that cool down with the forge. So I'm going to go ahead and lay this out. I'm just going to lay it out by eye. I'll do a little bit of grinding to clean up anything that doesn't look right. If you're going to make a bunch of these, making a paper pattern and then transferring the paper pattern once you're sure it's just right onto a piece of sheet metal that you can hang on the wall and use over and over again is a pretty good idea. But I'm not going to go into production making these, so I'm just going to eyeball this, see what we get. I'm going to start with about 4 inches here, and I'm going to put a 2-inch line from this straight edge. It's nice when there's a straight edge. Not all these saw blades have a straight edge down one side. Some of them had teeth cut on both sides. So it's nice and warped after being in the forge. But this will be good enough. And that'll be the center of my socket and the center of my blade down here. I think I'll square across right about there for the top of the blade. So this then will be where my blade goes, but it's really rough and scaling. It grinds the point off of this pencil really quick. But we're going to do something about like that. Like I say, I'll correct that with a grinder. And if you do a paper pattern and fold it in half, you can get it very symmetrical that way. Now for the socket, this one ended up being about 1.25 inches on the inside of the socket. Remember what you learned in your math class, the circumference of a circle is the diameter times pi, or 3.14. So 1¼ times 3 would be 3 3/4 inches. To make up for the 0.14, I'm going to make it just a little bit bigger than that. That's just an off-the-cuff measurement. You can take the time to do the exact calculation. It's not that big a deal. But neither is the exact size of this. So if you're working in metric, this is about 100 millimeters wide here, and it's about 27, 28 millimeters diameter here. Just make it fit what you want it to be. There are no magic measurements here. That's just kind of a guideline. So I know what I want here, which is actually the same 4 inches that I had down there. And I know I want it to taper. So I'm going to make it a little bit smaller down here. But not a lot smaller. I'd rather have a little bit too much and have to trim later than to have too little and have this be weak. It's going to be something like that, and then we'll round these corners off. So that's pretty much the pattern I'm going for. I'm going to do as much of this as possible on the little bandsaw. I think that's a quick and efficient way to do it. You can cut it with a chisel, you can cut it with an angle grinder. If you've got a bench shear like a Beverly shear, some of this will be pretty easily done there. But getting in here, I think the bandsaw is going to be the easy way to do that. My, didn't that go well? Unfortunately, the tire on that bandsaw is pretty well shot, and I'm going to have to put a new tire on it. And I'm not going to take the time right now to do this. So I'm going to go over to the Beverly shear or use some of those other methods we talked about and finish cutting this out. It always pays to have other options in the shop, because if you're counting on one tool to do the job and you have a problem, you may be out of work for the day till you get that tool fixed. Even after letting this piece cool in the forge, it's still pretty darn stiff. Probably not the best thing for the blades on the Beverly shear, but it's not complaining too much. Requires a little bit more just cutting chunks out. This will follow a curve. It doesn't get into the inside corners very well. I'm going to put a soft block on the treadle hammer here. I'm going to find a chisel with a little bit of a curve so I can follow this curve here. I'm going to bring that down just so it touches. Set the stop on the treadle hammer so I can't crush my hand if I accidentally miss the chisel for some reason. And you can do this at the anvil. I ended up cutting a little bit off here. I got way off in the shear because I didn't see the line very well. Just too bad, but we can do that. Let's make this match. You see how that kind of kicked out, but I can't smash my finger. I think it was Rob Gunther that came up with this side of the stop after one of his boys smacked their hand under the treadle hammer. And he felt bad, so he came up with this stop idea. It works very well. I think everything else we can do here on a grinder. I have the sheet metal piece all cut out. I'm going to go ahead and do this whole thing in the gas forge. The gas forge will give me a more even heat across the whole thing and is much less likely to start burning the little thin edges off. So I think a gas forge is the way to go with this. Try and work right up the center. I'm not going to make it very deep at the point, because I don't really need a deep rib there. Kind of flatten this back out again. Leave the rib though. The rib's what I wanted there. Also, just dishing this helps stiffen it, but I think the prominent rib really does a lot for it. We'll do the socket next and then come back and clean this up a little bit. Not real sure exactly what final shape I want in the shovel pan, but this is probably pretty close. That would be very useful in the garden. Maybe just a little bit more dish. I'm going to roll the socket up then the opposite direction. Start kind of working at the edges. You can do this at a swedge at the anvil as well as here in the swedge block. That's getting kind of twisted. I think I'll go to the vise and take that twist out before I go any further. Try not to crush what we started in the shovel pan here. The tongs are the better tool for that, but that's straighter. This is very much the same technique. Just depends on the tools you have available. Now I'm working it this way. I can't really get a hammer in there, so I'm working it down in and trying not to crush it. So it's very gentle rolling up at this point. This transition point is going to be a little weird, but it comes out pretty good if you're careful with it. You can see a little twist happening again, so let's go back to the vise and straighten that. Mostly this is just unrolling the part that's rolling too far, and hopefully we can get it to roll up better the next time. The horn on your anvil might be some help. Mine's a little bit too big for this kind of work, so I'm not going to do much right there. Now if you have some sort of a big drift that's about the size your handle will be, that is an excellent way to go. You can get it to stay on there. Most of this still needs to start in a swedge because this doesn't really do much right from the start, and even putting this in a swedge is going to help some. This is a little bit on the large side. I don't think I've got anything that's just perfect for this. Somewhere there's a little bick we made for another video, and I haven't been able to figure out what I did with that. Hope I didn't give it away. If I did, we may have to make another one. That's getting pretty good there. I'd like to tighten it up a little bit, so I'd like to find a smaller pin. But then there is this thing. This is an old antique anvil bick. And it's a pretty darn nice tool. Doesn't fit my hardy hole exactly. It could be a stump. This is probably the best thing I have to work over. So we'll probably go back into a swedge block here. So it's just kind of fiddle with whatever tools and techniques you've got at your disposal until you think you've got this the way you want it. I think I'm going to be pretty happy with what I've got here. I suppose if I were doing these as a production item, I would make a swedge that exactly matches what I want my socket to look like, I would also make a drift for the inside that exactly matches. So that is where I'm going to leave that. Now we've kind of messed up the shovel end, although we've also defined a few things. Like we've got this end here, and I like that, and I kind of like the way that looks, but I think this is just a little wrinkly. So I think we're going to work that out a little bit and maybe try to curve it just a little bit. I don't think I've got a real good dishing option that will do any better than just paying attention at the anvil here. By raising up a little bit this way, you can kind of control, get a little bit of a dish shape. I'm pretty happy with that. I think I'm going to heat this up, I'm going to anneal it, and then I can do a little bit of tweaking cold just to try and smooth some things out here. So that may need to wait till tomorrow. So that just goes in the bucket of vermiculite now. I've nearly got it up to 100 degrees here in the shop today, so I think I'm going to go ahead and take a break. I'm going to let that cool in the vermiculite. I'll come back either later this evening or tomorrow morning, and I'll see about any little tweaking, straightening, maybe little grinding, and then we'll pick it back up and talk about some heat treat. Now people ask what vermiculite is sometimes. Vermiculite is a mineral. It is often used to amend soils for planting. It makes it a little lighter, fluffier, doesn't pack together, and it's better for plant roots. So you buy it at your garden center. Now at one point there was a source of vermiculite that had some asbestos in it. Now you look for asbestos-free vermiculite or certified asbestos-free vermiculite, which in most places is all they can sell. I don't know if anybody is still using whatever mine it was that had some asbestos in it, but it's best to read the label and make sure it's safe. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't done so already, I would love it if you hit that subscribe button down there. Ring the bell next to the subscribe button to be notified when I make new videos. Feel free to stick around and watch a few of the other videos. Share the videos with your friends. In the meantime, I hope you have time in your day to get out to your shop, make something, but stay safe. Wear your safety glasses, and I'll see you for the next one. For those of you who noticed that the sound was a little off at the beginning of this video, I'm not sure exactly what the problem was, but yes, I am aware of it. After 4 to 6 hours of editing the video, I pretty much know where all the flaws are and all the mistakes,